Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech protected.
Brenda Farkas from Faith Christian Church.
Pastor Matthew J. Farkas from Faith Christian Church. We believe the Word of God is relevant today.
If we say that the Bible is God talking to us, is it still relevant today?
So we're here to answer questions concerning that.
The name of the show is Say What?
Say what?
Hello and welcome to Say What? I am Brenda, and usually I say Pastor Matt and Pastor Brenda from Faith Christian Church, but we have somebody missing, and I have Kitty with me, and I'm glad I don't have to say her last name. We're going to call her Kitty K because we're going to talk about some books and her name on it. And so we titled it Time with Kitty because I didn't know what else to title it because that's what it is.
That sounds good.
Yeah. So my husband and I have moved here about 5 years ago, so I can't say we're really new right now, but when we were first here, we started to meet people, and I was trying to think when I first met you, and it's probably at church, because
I'm sure.
being pastors, that was where our new associations and things
Right.
were, and so interactions. So I met you, and I know some of your family, and so one of the interesting things I know about you is, well, I also met you here because you did work in medical field.
Oh,
So,
right.
yep.
That's
So
right. Yeah.
I was doing
yeah.
some things up at the front desk, and there you were. So I said, "Oh, I know you."
Mhm.
It's
I've
always
seen you
nice when you
before,
go.
that's right.
Yeah, it's always nice when
A
you.
familiar face.
Yeah, a familiar face. I look for them sometimes. So Kitty, I invited you on because I know our show is titled "Say What," and we talk, scripture sometimes, and we do a lot of bouncing back and forth. It's kind of like a dialogue, but I wanted to do some different kinds of segments, and I wanted to know some things about you. So we're just going to kind of throw it out. I know that I met you through church, and you work in medical records. But I know there's a whole other side to you. And one of the things that I learned about you through your mother was that you published books, and your brother, because there was a local pastor that had a seminar or something on publishing, and he had shared some of that with us. So go ahead and tell me some things about you, because I know the community might know you, but maybe they don't even know about your books. I don't know.
Probably not. Best kept secret, probably. So I've born and raised in the same town, so pretty local girl. When I got married, I moved out of state 15 minutes away, but I've always been pretty much in the area.
Yeah.
Yeah, work in the same building I was born in. Yeah,
How about that?
Yeah, so.
So life, though, probably gave you some curveballs, even,
It has.
My favorite scripture I wanted to share is Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And it's probably familiar to you. I don't know. At some point maybe you'll share some of your favorite things, but I have found that to be helpful to me because there's a lot of times that I've been up against something I don't know quite what to do with that.
Right.
And then I could look to something inward that would help me, and then I didn't have to do it all on my own. That there was some strength available and some wisdom available. So anyways, tell us about yourself.
Well, I was, raised in the church. I was one of those people that, God didn't have to pick me up out of a gutter and put me back on track and clean me up and set me straight. I always went to church and stayed in the church, and I never really felt I had much of a testimony because, I never really strayed and had to get straightened out.
Did you ever hear that line, "To whom has been forgiven much, loves much"? That's the line that sometimes you hear by people that say, "Oh my, God really intervened," and And I used to say the same thing. I used to say to my husband, "I don't have any kind of testimony."
That's right. Yeah. And then there's also the verse that says, "To whom God has given much, much is required."
That's true.
I feel a lot of times that applies to me too.
Yeah.
That God's given me a lot of talent and ability, and I shouldn't waste it, you know, and it's been a journey trying to find my way to my calling, you know. I've had a, you know, I've had a calling on my life since I was a teenager, but you know, you don't wake up one morning and God sends you this text message, hey, this is what I want you to do with your life, you know. It's like all these little steps you take to get where you need to be.
So you said that you realized you had a call in your life as a teenager. So tell us what that would mean. How would you know that?
Well, I just felt
sense
like
something?
there was always something God wanted me to do, you know, that, and I love to sing, and I thought it was my voice, you know, and so I thought, oh, God wants me to be a singer, you know, and I just felt that there was always something more for me in life. I wasn't meant to just, you know, do the 9-to-5 job, you know, that there was always something more that God wanted me to do. And so, well, my late teens, early 20s, I applied to a Christian college, and you had to do a demo, and I thought, oh, I'll never get accepted, but I did. And it was like, I don't know, 16 hours away from home. And of course, I'd never been away from home. I went to camp once when I was a teenager, and I was terribly miserable and missed my family, you know. And so I thought, well, this is it, you know, this is my calling, you know, this is for me. And I went down to the college and I checked it out, fell in love with it. I mean, it was awesome. And you know, when God wants you to do something, he works out the details. And so the man my sister was married to at the time had a sister that lived in the city where the college was, and she had a spare room. And she was all excited to have somebody from home, you know, come stay with her. And so I went to see her, and she showed me around a little bit, and she said, now we're going to have to figure out how to get you across the city, because you're going to have to take like a series of buses to get where you need to go. And I thought, I'm going to get lost, you know. And so I thought, I'm just a small girl I'm a young girl from a small town, and I don't know how to work cities and buses. And so I panicked and I went back home. And I didn't do the college. And I always felt, you know, for years, even decades, that I had failed God. You know, I just had that hanging over my head where I felt like I'd missed my calling and I'd failed God because I didn't do what I felt he wanted me to do. But, you know, I came back, got married, got busy raising children and having a family, and, you know, stayed active in my community. You know, I was a treasurer in my church for like 24 years, and I taught Sunday school and youth group, and, you know, even doing Girl Scouts and community events, you know, stayed very active in my community, but just always felt there was something I was missing, you know.
Something more.
So, I got caught in this kind of like the 7-year storm. So it was kind of hard to motivate. We had lost our house in a flood about 15 years ago, and you know, as bad as things got in my life, I knew things could be worse because I'd been homeless. You know, we were homeless for 5 weeks, didn't even have a bed to sleep in or, you know, a place to call our own. And so, you know, things were going bad and, you know, not really well, not working out the way I wanted. But I kept thinking, well, it could be worse. At least I have a house and I have food and clothes. And so it was a little bit difficult to motivate. But I got caught in this series of events where my husband and I had talked for years about going on our dream vacation, our 25th anniversary. We were going to go on this special trip, and we did. And we got way on the other side of the country, about as far away from home as you can be, and we left the cruise ship by ambulance because he had a heart condition that we didn't know about. And so they wanted to keep him at the hospital, and anyway, that all worked out, but it left us with $4,000 worth of medical bills. And then the next year, we ran into a legal problem. Never been in a courtroom in my life, you know, never had to seek legal assistance. But, you know, we had to go to court, and I wanted a lawyer to make sure everything was done right, so another couple $1,000s. And then the year after that, our septic system failed. And it was a brand new house. There should have been nothing wrong with the septic system, but a couple more $1,000 worth of expenses. And so we ended up with a lot of financial problems. And then, you know, people in my family came down with medical issues, and we were running back and forth to the hospital, and just all kinds of problems, you know. And I ended up one day kind of having a breakdown at work, and I just went in the back office, and I cried and I cried and I cried. And, you know, I couldn't understand why this was happening. You know, I'd always gone to church, always lived a good life. Why was God letting this happen to me? And so I went to see my boss, and she sent me to the doctor, and the doctor said, you need to take a couple weeks off. And I said, all right, I will do that. So I took some time off, and I started watching. I thought I've got to do what I can to fill my head and my heart with as much of God as I can. So I started watching TBN in the morning, and they talked about the Holy Land experience. And so I had this opportunity come up where we bumped into the pastor's wife from our church where we grew up, and she invited us to visit her in Florida. My dad said he'd pay for the airfare. I mean, free trip to Florida. Who would turn that up? So we went down, and my sister and I went to the Holy Land experience, and it was amazing. I mean, if you're ever in Florida, you wanna go to the Holy Land experience. But my sister wanted to go see this show, and I don't really remember anything about it other than Jesus rode through the auditorium on a motorcycle. But after the play was over, this minister came out. He started preaching, and I don't remember anything he said, but what he said really hit my heart, and I just started to cry and had the tears just dripping right off my chin. And God spoke to my heart, and He said, "You are not walking out of this place the same person you were when you came in." So I went back to my job, and it was the same job, the same stress, but I had peace now that I didn't have before.
So you were different.
I was different, yeah. But one of the things my boss told me to do was to go see a therapist, and I didn't want to go see a therapist because I knew God was in control, and I didn't know why I was going through all this, but I didn't want to lose my job. If they wanted me to go for therapy, I'd go. So I went to see this therapist, and she said to me, "What do you do that makes you happy, that brings you a lot of joy?" So I told her I've been writing stories, and I was all excited about telling her about my stories, and she said, "I don't think it's just therapeutic for you. I think it's your calling." And I thought, oh, my calling. I'd forgotten all about my calling, I was busy living, and I forgot about my calling. And so I thought, all right, that maybe this is it. So I went to work. I thought God will use my voice. Well, when you write, you have a voice. I thought, well, maybe that's the voice that God will use. And so, so I went to work and started writing a book, and then listening to the Light Radio, I heard that Bob Pierce was doing a workshop on how to get published. So my brother and I went to that and found out how to get published. And so just a matter of months, I had a book out. So
Wow, you did it that fast.
It took almost from the year, about a year from the time I went to see her, but just a matter of months from the workshop that
So
I had
how
it
did
all
you
out.
get
So
the ideas for the book? Did they just
Oh.
come up out?
well, they
or-
say to write what you know.
Yeah.
So a lot of this is really stuff that happened, and the rest of it I just kind of filled in the blanks.
So put it up and let us
So
see.
this is the first one I did, and this is called A 12-Day First Christmas, and this is about Mary and Joseph, and their first child. They didn't name him Jesus and lay him in a manger. They named him Luke, but they had 12 children, and they had so many kids that it was hard for them to all come back on the same day. Now this idea I got from my aunt, because that's what she did. She couldn't have all her kids on the same day because there was too many kids, so she spread the Christmas out over a couple of days. But so I thought, oh, we'll do 12 and have 12 days of Christmas. So I thought, well, I'll name it the Davis family. So Mary Davis, she's just such a resilient person. This is a story of resiliency, and every day she's got all these plans for her kids, and something goes wrong every day. But the next day she gets up and she goes right back at it again, and she's just so resilient and very humorous. This would make a good movie. But this is a
I noticed that it's illustrated by somebody that's related to you,
by
right?
my sister. Yes, my
Okay.
sister is the artist. So it's a family thing, really. My sister Debbie is the artist. I'm the writer. My sister Debbie is the artist, and my sister Linda is the proofreader.
Okay.
And my niece Michelle is the computer geek that helps me do all the fine tuning and get it out online. So so that was my first one. The next year I did Angels for Abigail. And this one is a story about making good choices. It's a mother that has 3 children, and she is worried that she doesn't have what it takes to keep her children safe through their childhood and help them be successful as adults.
I
So
bet a lot of mothers think that.
yes, yeah. So she goes to church and she prays and she asks God to help her. So God sends 3 angels to help out with her 3 children. And so this is about making good choices, and it shows how the choices we make don't affect more than just us. Sometimes we think, oh, this is my life, I can do what I want. But this helps to show that our choices affect more than just ourselves. This is actually, this is my my sister Debbie's husband, Jim. This is my nephew Christopher and my nephew Mike.
That's funny.
They all posed,
Oh,
and then
that's
she
funny.
drew it and put it
Yeah.
on the cover. Very talented girl.
So what target is that for?
These are good for I'd say middle grade, middle school through young adult. I mean,
Okay.
even older
Yeah,
adults
yeah,
like them too. But yeah,
starting
but
about middle school.
about middle
then?
school. Yeah, I'd say middle school through
Okay.
up through.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then this one here, this is brand new. I don't know if you can see this one because this was so new I don't even have a copy of it myself. But this is Kitty Litter Thoughts from the Heart.
And
and
that's
this is-
playing on your name, I trust.
Yes. And this one, it's not a story form. It's just thoughts on life. There's 3 sections: the art of living, the joys of parenting, and for the spirit. And the art of living, just different things that have happened that.
So is
you know,
it like a chicken soup kind of?
it
thing?
is chicken
Okay.
soup for the soul. Yeah, that's kind of what it is. Yeah, just to encourage people and help them to know that they're not alone. You know, that other people have been through the same type of
Yeah.
experiences. That you can survive your children, and you know they will turn out to be successful adults. You know, you just gotta be patient. And then for the spirit, just different things that God showed me that I thought, well, it helped me. Maybe it would help somebody else. So yeah.
That's
So
nice.
yeah, and then just 2 children.
We're doing show and tell today.
Yeah. 2 children's stories
Oh, okay.
after the snowflakes
All right.
and Sunny Boy.
And these are already out?
Well, these I'm still working on.
Okay.
Yeah, after the snowflake is
I love the
yeah, my sister
pictures.
Debbie. She did a great
Yeah.
job illustrating. Yep. Yeah, this one here, I'm working on getting this one out on Kindle.
Okay.
And when I get that one out, then I'm going to start working on Sunny Boy. Sunny Boy is actually the first book I ever wrote. I did this one for a children's literature class at college. But so he's not out yet, but he's
Yeah.
next after I get the snowflake
So
one
you've
out.
got
So
a whole range of reading material for a whole range of ages. Yeah.
Yes, and a whole lot more to go if I
Yeah.
just could.
So you think you'll keep doing this?
Oh, I definitely will keep doing it. Yeah. I've got so many stories rolling around in my
Yeah?
head, and I just
Alright.
got to get them out on paper, and then I can move on to the next one.
Yeah,
But,
that's good.
yeah.
So, what can you tell me about that time? There was like a dark time for you.
It was.
So
yeah, it
you were
was very-
thinking, where's God in this? And how did he let this happen? So what were your answers that you came up with, if you came up with any?
Well, sometimes it's just so hard for us to understand why God allows us to go through. When something bad happens, you feel like you're being punished. Like, I did something wrong and I deserve this punishment. And when you don't do anything that you can remember doing wrong, and you feel like you're being punished, you're like, why is this happening, God? Why did you allow this? Now, when I lost my house, it was just, I had always prayed that God would protect my family and my house and the place where my husband worked, and yet, the house got destroyed by the flood. The place where my husband worked got destroyed by the flood, and I'm like, wow. I mean, we didn't just lose our house; we lost half our income, and I was the only one working, and I'm like, God, I don't really understand this, but I know something good will come out of it. And my husband and I had always wanted to design our own house and build it. Never would have done it,
Yeah,
Like I said, I was satisfied with what I had, and I never would have had the time or the money to design and build a house. But when you're homeless, you've got to do something. And so we ended up with a brand new house. Brand new house,
Nice.
I mean, we designed it, we started from the ground up, and we built it. There was another lady that I had gone to church with as a teenager, and she had lost her house, and the same thing. She had been a devoted Christian all her life, and yet all she had left was a handicap ramp. Her house just washed away down the river, and same thing. She said she'd always wanted a brand new house, and she got one because same thing. She was homeless, and she had to do something. And so, we ended up with something better than what we had. My house was my house that got destroyed by the flood was dark. It was dismal. It had tiny little windows. It was so dark in my bedroom that you couldn't tell whether it was night or day because it was kind of sheltered up between a bank and a building. And I was just depressed all the time I lived there because it was just so dark and gloomy. And so I ended up with this house with big windows and sunlight and, bright and in fact, I can't sleep in the morning anymore because the sun's shining in the window, and so I just ended up with something so much better than what I had.
That reminds me of a song, Something Beautiful,
Something good. Yeah.
All my confusion, he understood. It sounded like you had some confusion.
Right.
When all I had to offer him was
brokenness and
strife.
Yeah.
He took it and made something
beautiful
in my life. And
That's right.
I love
That's
that
right.
song. I mean, there's even a verse to it, but I think that can speak volumes about life.
Yes.
Life.
Yeah.
Like you had mentioned. Well, I've done everything right, and I believe in God, and why didn't He protect me? But it's interesting when you walk through life, because life is a journey.
Right. That's right.
And when you
That's
walk through it, it's interesting sometimes what's thrown at you.
Mm-hmm.
But when you walk through it and then you look back, you're like, oh, I've got a great house.
Yeah.
Now, is that
now I
house
understand.
anywhere near where you used to live? Or?
It is. We went for higher ground. We built up on
I was hoping so. I was gonna
we
ask
built up on the hill behind where we were living, so it's still
Okay.
a stone's throw away from where we were, but on higher ground, so we won't have to worry about water anymore.
Good. So, what could you share to somebody that's watching and says, I don't know, that's nice that happened for her, but how could that happen for me? What would be steps that somebody could take to bring God back into the equation, maybe?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I see one of my favorite verses is "Be still and know that I am God."
Yep.
Psalm 46:10. And that's a good one for me because I am just go constantly, always on the go. And I have to remind myself, hey, stop and take time for God for one thing, but also know that no matter what you go through, God is there. He's in control. And so I got so busy with life that I wasn't necessarily taking the time I should. And when I started going through all these problems, I thought, I've just got to saturate myself with God as much as I could.
I heard you say that.
Yes,
You
yes.
took that. You took a step back
so
and said,
I
how can
did,
I
I
work
did.
on this?
So I started watching, I thought, well, where can I fit more into my schedule? I've got a tight schedule, I know that, but where can I fit things in? So, I get ready for work in the morning, I'll turn on TBN, and I'll listen to Joyce Meyer or Andrew Womack or Joel Osteen, whoever is on. And my goodness, they would speak to me. I mean, it was like they knew my situation and they were talking to me. I mean, God used that to speak through them, to to speak right to my heart. And so, and then when I got in the car, I would turn on the light radio and listen to the light radio, and just however I could, just try to fill my heart and my mind with more of the things of God. And when you take time for Him, He'll reach out to you. He'll make He'll show you that He's there and that He cares.
He's always there to show Himself strong and to reveal Himself, but we're not always where we can actually
That's right.
receive that.
Yeah.
And that be still and know that I'm God has parts to it. Be still. It's like a command, and sometimes we don't do good with being, even though we're grown up, we're like children. Don't tell me what
Don't
to
tell
do.
me what to do.
I just might do it my way.
Yeah, right. And like me, I got this under control. I know what I'm doing, but sometimes we don't.
And the next part says, and know something. And I think when we're doing life, like you said, and we're just busy, the knowing part of God and His revelation in our life, it just kind of gets squashed a little bit.
Right.
And bad times actually do sometimes allow Him to magnify Himself. And then know that I am God. And I think that's good too, because sometimes you just like to, you don't realize it, but you're like, I'm God. I'm deciding what I'm going to do today, and maybe I'll ask God to bless it.
And go along with it.
And maybe He says, no, I want to interrupt you. I have a different thing for you to do. So we as human beings don't always do well with those kinds of interruptions.
That's right.
So it's kind of, there's lots of reasons why, there's even a book out, Why Bad Things Happen to Good People.
That's right. Yeah.
But there's lots of reasons why, and one thing is that we're living in this world, we may be in this world but not of this world. They like to tell us that we're just passing through, or different things like that. There's cliches and verses that we throw around, but you know, when somebody watches your life, and they are watching, because the Bible says, even when they don't pick up the Bible, it says you are the testament that they're reading, you know. And when they see you go through something and they say, wait a minute, look how she's gonna make it, you know. And even when you talk to a therapist and they actually shed light on what was actually inside of you, you know, and pulled it out, you know.
Right, and I was, you know, I didn't want to have to go talk to a therapist, because like I said, I thought, you know, God is in control, but you know, the thing about it doesn't hurt to talk to somebody else. Somebody else, that's right, and they're not emotionally attached to your problems like you are. You know, sometimes you're so emotionally attached to your problems, you just can't see past them, you know, and somebody else can get a different perspective and see it a different way, and you know, and just provide a little guidance that to point you on the right, you know, the right path, the right direction. So,
and then there's always that thought that once you've walked through it, and then you see somebody else, or you see their pain, and you say, oh, but you know, let me walk with you, because I've had that happen
That's
before.
right. That's right. You can't really sympathize or empathize with somebody else if you haven't felt it yourself. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right.
So that's just a thought. Yeah. So you never went to Bible college. So you kind of thought about that, though. You said even for decades. I wonder about some of us, you know, we have things in our heart. We're not sure if it's our idea or if it's a God idea. And we kind of shuffle along, and then sometimes we take a big jump like you did, and then sometimes we say, oh, I don't know if I can do that. And then you second guess and you wonder. I think sometimes that those things cripple people, because they're just kind of wondering, you know, did I do the right thing? Did I disappoint? Or did I miss it? Will I get another opportunity? So I like your story, because, you know, you thought it was music. It made sense that it was music. And you had another opportunity, and it's exploding, you know.
And the thing too is that you know, back then I didn't have all these ideas. You know, I've accumulated all these ideas through the years, and so now I've got so much writing material that I bet you have writing.
I bet you have a new take on that scripture about building on the firm foundation and building on the sand, and the flood comes. So that is interesting. And what else would you say? If you were kind of talking, you know, I mean, you know the community. You've been here. You've been born in it, raised in it. You've got how many brothers and sisters?
Well, there's 6 kids altogether.
6 kids.
Yeah.
And you're number 4. You told me, I think.
Yeah, I'm right in the middle. Yeah.
And your brother is the baby.
No. Actually, there's another one younger than my brother.
Okay, is there? Okay,
yeah,
I was thinking he was the baby. Okay.
No, he kind of got stuck in the middle there too.
Yeah. And so, I don't know, you know the area, so what kind of struggles, disappointment, is there, like, what kind of things do you think people have in their lives, rejection, or what kind of things are going on in the world around you? Because, you know, it's easy to, even in church, it's easy to see a mission field when a missionary shares it, and you say, oh, I wish I could go there. And then they tell you all the great things God is doing there, and you're like, oh, too bad I live here. I wish I could go there. God shows up over there. So I mean, how would you speak to any of the things around you that you see?
Well, I think that we live in a stressful day and age. You know, I mean, there's just so much that can go wrong nowadays. You know, you got all your electronics and, you know, your cars and your appliances, and, you know, there's just your cell phone, you know, there's your computer. There's just so much that can fail and go wrong. And sometimes you feel like, you know, you just can't win, because, you know, you get this problem all straightened out, and then something else goes wrong. Yeah. I remember my sister, when she'd been married for about 25 years, and just all her appliances just started dying. You know, she'd get the stove fixed, and then the washer and dryer had problems, and so I think, you know, as a whole, we just live in a stressful society, stressful day and age.
So it doesn't matter who we are, or what kind of job we have, or anything. We all share stress.
That's right. That's right. And we just, you know, we have to find a way to be, you know, okay with that, be successful with that. And, you know, for me, it's just, just give it to God. God, I don't know why, this is happening, but, I just,
And then
work
you
it out.
found
And-
that one verse, and you've probably got lots of others that speak to you, but you found that verse that spoke to you, and you
Right, right.
apply it
Right.
when you
right.
see a situation come up. It speaks to you. Now, I also know that you grew up in a big family, so therefore I know you have lots of family reunions with lots of people in them. And you have children. You mentioned that you parented, so you have children.
Yes, I have 2 children.
2 children, and you have grandchildren, right? Because I happen to know that you actually have a great love for children.
Yeah, I've worked with children all my life,
Mhm.
yeah.
Right, so,
Yeah.
so children in our society, it's changed now than it was, back when
Right,
we were children. And we'd like to believe that we have a better world for our children and our grandchildren because we have a lot of more stuff and better stuff. And you mentioned technology, but still, our society comes up lacking on things that the inner things that build people. So,
Right.
so I like that you write because I think that that's a great voice and it builds people and it's private, You may not even know how you bless somebody with what you wrote and they might not even know why you wrote that. How you wrote, even if it was a funny thing. Maybe a lot of pain was suffered for that funny thing.
Right.
You know?
That's what I've always said, that
Yeah.
the things that are the most humorous later were quite
Yeah.
painful when they actually happened, that at the time it wasn't funny,
Yeah.
but then, later you can look back and
Mhm.
laugh at it. Yeah.
Because I actually liked, when I turned 50, I actually liked that. Some people stress out over 30 and the different years. I actually liked 50 because I felt like I should have earned some respect by now. And I felt like I should have been a little smarter than I used to be. And I actually like the part where you look back and you see things that, that you've walked through and lived through, and you see some, your kids, and you see some grandkids, and then you see your parents a whole different way because you're like, oh my goodness, I remember when my mom was this old.
Right.
And she was old.
She was old.
I'm
and
not
I'm
old. So, but you
Right.
get to see, because there's different seasons to life when
That's
you walk
right,
through
that's
life.
right, yeah.
But I'm curious if I follow your writing, how your writing will be, because here you've got so much to look back at, and then so much to observe around you, and working with children, working with, the medical field, working with whatever you work with, you're going to see different perspectives and different things, and it's going to come out in your writing, and what a great voice that is, for real. And I believe that's why God wrote us a whole library, 66 books, but shame on us, we look at it when we see it like this and we go, oh my goodness,
That's
is
a
way
lot.
too much.
That's a lot of words.
And if it happens to be the King James, we're like, oh no. And then if somebody tells us, well, start at the beginning and work your way through, by the time you get to the begats and the begottens, and,
Right,
and you
right.
can't even spell them or say them, you're done. and so, but God uses spoken word and written
And
word
Mhm.
to
That's
speak
right.
into our lives. And the words are to reveal something. And God's word reveals him to us. And so I just love that whole thing that you're writing, that you do have that voice. And I know a lot of times when I read something and then I hear a sermon or somebody speak about it, I'm like, well, that's not what I got. But it speaks to you where you're at
It does. It
in
does.
that time of life,
Right. 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 That's like when
So-
you watch
Yeah.
an evangelist on TV
Yeah.
or sit in
Mhm.
church, and
Yeah.
you'll hear one thing and
Yeah.
somebody hears something else. But yeah, you pick
Yeah.
up what you need and
Yeah.
what will benefit you.
So how can people get a hold of your books?
Well, I believe that the first 3, that Kitty Litter, Angels for Abigail, and 12 Days of Christmas, I believe those are all on Amazon.
Okay.
After the Snowflakes, we've had a hard time getting that one out because of the cover. I don't know, something about the cover, but that one should be available on Kindle. If it's not yet, it will be shortly. And Sunny Boy will be out on Kindle shortly.
So you've mentioned Amazon and Kindle.
Mhm.
I know people that don't like to read, but they love Kindle.
Oh.
So tell me, in this career of writing, how that works. So Kindle is a way that you can access it, and it comes to your iPad or your device. Is that how it goes?
You can, yeah,
Mhm.
ebooks, yeah. The first 2 are ebooks. we went through somebody different when we published Kitty Litter, and so we don't have the ebook version of that ready yet. But yeah, that's that. I mean, it makes sense because then you don't have to print it, you know, and
Yeah.
but I actually like the whole
I
book.
like a book. I like
I like to hold a
pages,
book in my hand. Yes.
And I was one of those ones that used to underline and put little notes in,
Yes,
and then some
yep.
people say that just drives them nuts. Well, I wouldn't want you to have my book that I put
That's
notes in
right.
because they're my notes.
Those are my notes.
But I get it, you know.
Right.
And some people think it's so disrespectful to write in the book, you know. But I'm like, no, it's a book. It's personal, you know. And so I do. And I like to. I don't usually dog ear them because I like to keep them nice. But yeah,
Right.
books are so. But
Yeah.
nowadays, you know, I get discouraged at we call it progress, but I just get discouraged sometimes as we go on, that some of the things that were so precious and just were just something you could count on, or something that was, you know, a foundational thing or something, is not there anymore. And so I haven't tried ebooks yet. I go like this.
Right. Yeah, I had
Because I
some-
still like the book.
The other thing with the ebook, somebody bought my book. He goes, "Well, I can't have you sign it because I got the
Yeah.
ebook, so you
probably
can't-
don't have to
you can't."
dust it, you know, like by the bookshelves. I gave Junkie so much money downtown because I was always buying bookshelves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and these two books are also available at the local bookstore.
Oh, really? In
Yeah,
town here?
In town, yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
So, and you're published under Kitty K, K-A-Y-E.
K-A-Y-E. Mhm.
All right. So that's good to know. We're pretty far away from Christmas because we're just starting over again. But
Right, right.
surely they would want to stock up. Yeah. So we've got about probably 10 minutes, and I was counting on you to do all the talking.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so
So-
talk on.
Well, let me just look at my notes here. Oh, you know, and a couple other things that that motivated me. You know, I was at your church actually one day, and we were singing. I told you how I love to sing and use my voice, and you know, I had this idea of, you know, something I wanted to do, and yet I didn't have the courage to do it. You know, and so I just felt like God spoke to me. I was standing there in church one day, we were singing, loved to sing, and I just didn't feel like singing that day. And I'm standing there, and I just felt like God said to me, you know, you can choose not to sing, that's your choice. But by not sharing your voice, the people around you will never know of a blessing they might be missing, because they won't know the talent and ability that you have inside of you. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's true. If you don't share your talent and your ability, people will never know what your gifts are, what you have inside. And then my sister invited me to go to a Matthew West concert with her. So I went to see Matthew West, and I bought his CD. And one of his songs was "The Story of Your Life." What kind of legacy are you going to leave? This is a story of your life, and what are you going to do with it, basically? And I thought, no one's going to remember me for working a 9-to-5 job, you know. Sure, I've put my heart and soul into it, done the best I could, but, you know, nobody's going to remember me for that. So so I thought, you know, I really need to do something more with my talents and my ability. And then Joyce Meyer came fairly close last year. She was just 2 hours away, and my husband and I went, and I told you how I had gone through that 7-year storm, you know, and I'll write a book about it someday, but, you know, just one problem right after another. I felt, if I had to describe how I felt, I felt like I was out in the middle of a lake, and the water was choppy, and I'm, you know, trying to keep my head above water, but, you know, I felt like I just kept getting slapped in the face with one wave after another, and I hadn't recovered from one, and I got slapped in the face with another, you know, and I just was so worn out, and I was just praying, God, send me a rescue boat, you know. I am so wiped out from all these problems, I can't help myself. And so Joyce Meyer came, and the year she came, it was like year number 8, you know, and in the Bible it talks about the year of Jubilee, how the 8th year you start over, and it's the year of Jubilee, the year of celebration. So I said, God, this is my year of Jubilee, I am claiming it. So I went to see Joyce Meyer, and I thought, oh, you know, maybe she'll speak to me like she did when I watched her on TV. Maybe she'll have a message that's just for me. And she had a good message, you know, it was about claiming what you want, you know, and it was a good message, but she was done, and I thought, well, that didn't speak to me the way I wanted it to. And so I went out. My husband and I were standing out on the steps of the auditorium. I'm like, God, I'm kind of disappointed. I expected something more. I thought this was going to be my year of Jubilee. And I looked across the road, and there was a jewelry store, and it was Jubilee Jewelers. And I'm like, it was like God is saying, this is your year of Jubilee. I mean, the store was empty. It had a for rent sign in the window, but the sign was still there that said Jubilee Jewelers. And, I just walked away feeling good, like, God heard me.
God knows where I'm at.
Yeah, He heard me, and He knows that I want this to be my year of Jubilee. And the problems are going to be there. They're not going to go away. But I've got this peace that I didn't have before, and and I've worked out a lot of the bigger problems have resolved. We've made it through some of the financial hardships that we had come across. All in a row, and so God will just work you through it and get you. It's baby steps. We wake up and we want purpose for our life. We want meaning and purpose, but but it's baby steps. You do this and it leads you to this, and you do this and it leads you to that. And then finally you find purpose and meaning to your life. And when I started writing, I finally found, like maybe this is my calling.
Yeah.
Maybe this is what God has for me. So.
And I think that's an important message to put out, because everybody is unique, and God made them unique on purpose, and He doesn't get all uptight about that. He did that on purpose, and then they have a purpose, and it's just knowing that and having somebody speak that into you just helps a little bit when you're in those spots where you're like, nobody knows who I am, nobody cares,
Yeah, but God does, and and every life has purpose. There's something for you to do, something for everyone to do.
And in the middle of a bad thing, you can pull down inside of you and find something, and it's an expression, and you just don't know. Sometimes it's not what you thought.
Right. Like I thought it was singing. I thought my voice was music, but my voice is the writing. So yeah.
So when you're saying that, I was thinking about the baby steps. I was thinking about in Isaiah, it says, "If you be willing and obedient, you'll eat the good of the land." And I think sometimes with God, we think if our behavior's right, if our morals are right, if we give enough to other people, and we have this whole checklist of things, then we will automatically be good because we've done this, and we've behaved like this, and we look like this, and we talk like this. And then when we come up against something, no, maybe not. But it's those testings that bring out what's inside of you. And if it's never tested, nobody knows what's inside of you because you're not sharing, some of those things.
That's right.
And we are, each one of us as a member of the body of Christ, are an expression of Him. And, He's not here visibly like Jesus was when He was here. But we are, I like to say this, we're the manifest presence of God that around us, because that's how God manifests us through. Just like I get to know you by how you introduce yourself to me, or what I observe of you. And so if we're doing that with our lives in introducing God and just letting people observe us and walking the best we can in those things that we know to be true in our hearts, what a blessing it can be, and an encouragement, because I think it's important, especially in the world that we live in now, to be an encouragement. There's a lot of discouragement and a lot of negativity that you don't even have to look for it. And so how much more can it be to turn that around, and shine some light into something that's dark, So I appreciate you sharing that and sharing some of your journey, because it shines some light, there's darkness everywhere in somebody's life, or and you don't know what's inside of a person, or what their pain is, or what their struggle, what their thoughts are. Your thoughts can devastate you. But when you have these little glimmers of light that you can see, it's just one little speck of light can just chase darkness right away. It doesn't have to be a lot. So just taking those baby steps that you talked about is important, because God's always ready to meet us. He's not up here and we're just struggling up.
Right.
He comes down. That's what I love about God in His story. He comes down to us, our level. That's what Jesus did, and brings us up to Him. And when we do that, we express that to people around us, that that's how God is real now. Yeah, he may not be King James, you know, but he can be 21st century alive and well in how we actually walk it out and present it. And those verses, you know, they would mean nothing if they just sat, you know, in there and nobody ever shared them. So I love just sharing favorite verses, and I love your chicken soupy kind of idea, whatever it was, kitty litter
Kitty
idea.
litter thoughts from the heart.
Because there's
yes.
so many people, they say, well, reading's not my thing, or they say, you know, I can't handle this kind of a theology kind of a book or something. But there you go. That's something that you can just kind of nibble on, and it can be,
Right.
it can give you some life. you
Yeah,
know.
and there's short little sections that you just read one a day. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, what a D vitamin, huh? Get you going.
And that one, I'll probably do, you know,
A
a
series
series
of
of
them?
those, yes,
Yeah.
because I have a lot of little thoughts
That's
that
good.
that would
Yeah,
benefit others.
Yeah. and it's all about that, sharing, you
Mhm,
know?
mhm.
As-
Helping
Because like
each
you
other
said,
through.
with your voice,
Yeah.
if you would have hoarded it, and that's what God did. He gave us that example, and we can follow his example. God so loved the world that he gave, and he never stopped.
Right.
And sometimes, you know, you think about it, you know, he said he's came to experience everything that we did so that he could help us. And when we hit rejection or we hit disappointment, a lot of times we just want to stop.
Right. It hurts.
And go into
yeah.
that corner and say, no more, you know.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
put up our wall so that something can never happen. Be in control of something, but be still and know that I am
That
God.
I'm God. That's
And
right.
mine, I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. There's so many verses that God is saying. Say what? Well, God is saying something. And you can tune into a show, and you've mentioned a lot of shows too on Christian radio and Christian TV. Matthew West Music. I mean, there is so much available to us now.
There is.
We really have no excuse, but we'll probably continue to make some.
We're human. That's what we do.
but you've shared some good things with us though today, and I want to thank you for that.
Sure.
So thank you for tuning in. We invite you to, of course, check out Kitty's books. You say they're on Amazon, right?
Amazon.
Amazon, under Kitty Kaye. And we have church services every Sunday, 10 a.m., 582 Rockingham Road. And there's some graphics. You can access the shows and different things. And we have a website, wordworksforyou.org or .com. And Kitty and I think together would just say we speak a blessing into your life, and we were glad to have the opportunity to do that. So God bless you. Amen.